Hey there, Afrodo Reviews here, helping you decide if that book's worth reading over a second breakfast, or does it deserve the fiery pits of Mount Doom? Normally I turn around and slap Mount Doom right now, but I left it in the other room and I'm too lazy to go get it. So anyways, for those of you who know, this is my TBR / wrap-up video where I discuss the books that I've read this month, and I discuss the books I'm going to read next month. This month being August, next month being September. Anyways, as far as this month goes, you saw most of my reading journey play out before you as the month went on. Most of the time, the books were, mercifully, decent books that I overall liked. And the one book that I didn't like, that I ranked real low, I didn't feel quite deserved Mount Doom due to the circumstances behind its publication and the fact that the author was barely getting into the writing world. Most authors' debut book will often be their worst one, and that's more fact than opinion, but it is still an opinion, I admit. Now, if you watch my reviews throughout the whole month, you know generally how I felt about all these books, and otherwise know what I have to say about them, what I liked, what I didn't, so on. So I'm not going to get too caught up in that. I will, however, go on to my minor TBR. Now, for those of you who have watched my TBR, at least in July, you know that in the background I have at least 2 or 3 other books, maybe 4, where I read them in the background alongside the main TBR. Now, the main TBR is my focus. I focus on getting through those books first. However, if I just can't continue a book I'm reading on the main TBR, or I polish off that main TBR and I still have a couple weeks left in the month, I will go to my minor TBR and read those as well. It's just one of those to help break the flow. As a mood reader, sometimes it's hard for me to follow a outline. But for those of you who know, I've been reading a couple. I actually managed to finish off 2 of the 3 that I had mentioned before. The first one is Time Salvager by Wesley Chu. This is a time travel fiction about a man in the future who goes back into the past and basically salvages things from disasters about to happen. So that way they can continue to push humanity's inevitable fall due to the major crapsack world they live in a little bit farther away and try to recover. It was a pretty decent book. Personally, it took me 2 months to get through because it was so slow. Those of you who watched my last TBR know I said I was almost done with it. And that, while that was true, there was still quite a bit of pages left, and it does tend to be a little slow. I'm not going to give a full review here. If I feel like it, I'll put it in with a main review, or just do a side review sometime this next month. It's a good book, so I do recommend it. Anyone looking for good time travel fic, it does try to make sure that its science and logic holds up pretty well. Although with time travel fic, you can never completely do that. But the second one I managed to finish was The Night Gardener by Jonathan Auxier. Auxier? I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm going to get it close, see if you guys can see it. I hope that isn't reflecting too bad. Now, this is a young adult horror book that was written, that I found in Goodwill, and it looked somewhat decent. I was a bit apprehensive because when it comes to horror written for younger audiences, the definition of what you find horrifying completely changes. So in reality, I didn't put too much hope on it, but I'd be proud to say that I think it's a better horror than Relic, if not necessarily a better book. It's definitely not as complex, but I do like the horror element in this way better than I liked it in The Relic, is what I'm trying to say. I liked it, so if you're looking for a good young adult horror, I recommend this book. But apart from that, I guess I don't have too much to say about that. I'm still working on the When We Left the World Behind. I might DNF that one, though. It's hard to read, and it's hard to explain without going too deep into it, but it's a really weird book. Like, I'm talking, there are 2 chapters where the main characters get sexually aroused by the fact they're on vacation. And I don't mean it's metaphorical. I don't mean that they're just so excited it seems like they're sexually aroused. No, I mean the book flat out describes they're sexually aroused by the fact they're on vacation in a stranger's home, including those kinds of descriptions. So it's a weird book, and I'm not sure if it's a good weird. So I'll update you on that. I'll have decided by next month at the very least. But yeah, on top of that, you guys will notice I didn't get out my essay this month either, and I do apologize for that. I want to get it out. I hate to keep saying I'm going to put it out this month and not putting it out. Long story short, some stuff came up, so that's why we weren't able to get it out. The person I'm collabing with was dealing with some life issues, so I'm going to keep working on it, but I'm going to turn my attention to one of the other video essays I had planned that isn't a collab, so hopefully I'll be able to get that out next month. Like I said, I'm going to keep trying to release videos on Thursday or Friday, just to, you know, do some other stuff besides the reviews, which I want to do. Now, apart from that, there's not too much that's going to change with the channel. The videos are mostly going to stay the same. I'm still liking this style, and it still seems to be working well in terms of what you guys like as well. In addition to that, I think the only thing that I'll change on that front is the thumbnails, but you guys have already seen that. As you can see, I'm clearly trying to do more of a face thumbnail where I react to the book as opposed to the drawings that I was doing earlier. And that's mostly just because I felt the art I was putting as thumbnails was a little too childlike and gave the wrong impression of my channel, even though I did enjoy making them. Apart from that, I don't have much to say about what else happened this month. So I'll be moving on to my September TBR. Now, for September, I contemplated a lot of what I was going to do in terms of setting up TBR. I thought about the themes. I do like mood reading, but at the same time, I also like giving you guys a clear idea of what to expect. I've been trying to go more into these themes. Now, the first theme I considered was doing a YouTuber book kind of thing, where I take YouTubers, fellow booktubers, or just YouTubers in general, and reading their books and talking about how well they wrote their books. You know, things like Crimson Rogue's Micro God, or Daniel Green's books. I forget what he calls them, the series, which I do have, or even Scott Cawthon's Five Nights at Freddy's, which I got one of those back there too. However, I decided against that simply because I don't want to talk about them just yet. I didn't think it felt too well. I also thought about doing another random month where I just plug in the genres into a randomizer wheel and then click it and then find a book based on whatever genre I get. However, since I did that for this month in August, I decided that I wasn't going to do that this month, and I would give you guys something new. So eventually I settled on the September, the month of autumn, or fall if you're in the US, but I'm going to say autumn because that's the more globally accepted term for this time. Since September 21st is the first month of autumn, I decided to base all my books around the month of autumn, or symbols of the month of autumn, that is to say. For this TBR, since I have 4 Mondays to talk about books, I set my requirements thusly. I need a book with leaves on the cover. That is to say, it can have leaves falling, it can have leaves in the middle of autumn, or it could just be regular leaves. Now, preferably, I want to find a book that has falling autumn leaves, but any leaves will do. For the second book, I have to find a yellow cover. Now, this is because, as time goes on, leaves, I live in a desert, so the trees either don't lose their leaves, or they never had any green on them in the first place, so I hope this is the way it goes. Since leaves start turning yellow, I have to find a book with a yellow cover. Then I have to find a book with an orange cover, because then they go orange. Then I gotta find a book with a red cover. You know, obviously. So, and then I will talk about those. Now, for the first book, the one revolving around leaves, I thought about it, and I eventually decided to go with The Revenge of the Shadow King, part of the Grey Griffin saga. Full disclosure, this is one of those old books I've read a lot in high school. I read this one and the 2 following it as part of a series. However, unlike the other books I did for my Nostalgia Month, I can't honestly tell you much about this book off the top of my head. I do remember deeply enjoying them at the time, but I don't necessarily think they made the same impact as something like Lightning Thief or Harry Potter or even The Land made on me. That's why this book doesn't really come to mind when I think nostalgic books. As you can see, it clearly has leaves in the middle of autumn, so it passes. The best way I could describe this book as I remember it is, imagine Stranger Things, but instead of D&D, it's Magic the Gathering. But anyways, allow me to read you the synopsis and let you know. Can the Grey Griffins save their town from the evil Shadow King? Max Sumner and his 3 best friends, Harley, Ernie, and Natalia, who form the secret club the Grey Griffins, seem to be the only people in their very normal Minnesota town to notice strange things have started to happen. When creatures like goblins and fairies and unicorns, all characters from a card game the Grey Griffins play, begin to make appearances in Max's backyard, Max and his friends know something is terribly wrong. And it's up to them to stop the wicked creatures of the cards from destroying their town. Indeed, their world. So yeah, that's not necessarily an in-depth TBR, considering it comes off more like a kid book, but this book is more a young adult in my opinion. At least as far as I remember. I've read about a chapter in so far as of this moment, and I would argue it's more of a young adult than kids book, but onwards. The next book that I need is a book with a yellow cover. And the book that I found is Tim Cocky's, I hope that's how you pronounce his name, otherwise I'm insulting the dude. Tim Cocky's Murder in the Hearst Degree. Yeah, this is one of those books I picked up purely because of the pun. In addition to that, I also told myself around the time I got this that I wanted to start reading more detective fiction based on my own personal projects in the background. So when I saw this at the store and I saw its nice punny title, I decided to grab it and stick it on my shelf. Now let's see if it holds up when I actually read it. The synopsis is, Hitchcock Sewell really should know better by now. His job as an undertaker is to bury people, not go snooping into the reasons why they ended up on a slab. But then again, if Hitch didn't stick his nose where it didn't belong, he just wouldn't be Hitch, and readers would be robbed of the latest installment in one of the most talked about new mystery series to come along in years. This time out, Baltimore's most eligible mortician is taking up the cause of a former flame whose young nanny has just been fished out of the Severn River near Annapolis. The police are calling it a suicide, but Hitch isn't buying it. And it's more than just the cause of death that Hitch finds suspicious. A felonious former governor of Kentucky, a tainted right-wing religious organization, a really, really bad actor, and a dogged tabloid journalist with more interest in chasing down Hitchcock's luscious ex-wife Julia than in chasing down the story all fall into Hitchcock's path as he attempts to sort out the truth behind what really happened to the nanny. With his renowned blend of saucy wit, characters who could walk off the pages, and a fast-paced... I'm not going to read that, that's just talking about the author. So yeah, this sounds more like one of those comedic detective tales. And while I normally don't like starting off series, even things like this, which are meant to be read in whatever order, well, I don't like starting them off without reading the first book. I've never heard of this before I picked this book up, so I'm just going to be using this one. So yeah, it sounds fun. It sounds like it's going to be a nice comedy, so let's hope it holds up. The next book has to have an orange cover. And so I chose The Feral Detective by Jonathan Lethem. Lethem? Lethem. I think it's Lethem. Now, if I remember right, I found this book on the same day that I found The Murder in the Hearst Degree. However, this one I remember being on Walmart's discount shelf rather than the thrift store, where I know I got Hearst Degree. While it's not really a sign of quality, considering some of the things I've seen on Walmart shelves, it did intrigue me, so I picked it up. But yeah, it's weird already in the sense that it's a modern book with deckled edges. So yeah, you don't typically see that a lot in modern books these days. But anyways, the synopsis. Phoebe Siegler first meets Charles Heist in a strip mall office on the eastern edge of Los Angeles. She's looking for her friend's missing daughter, Arabella, and hires Heist as a guide, a laconic loner who keeps a rescued opossum in a desk drawer. Heist intrigues the sarcastic and garrulous Phoebe. Reluctantly, he agrees to help. The unlikely pair navigate the enclaves of the desert-dwelling vagabonds and find that Arabella is in serious trouble, caught in the middle of a violent standoff that only Heist, mysteriously, can end. Phoebe's trip to the desert was always going to be strange, but it was never supposed to be dangerous. So yeah, this is another one of those detective books. At least that's what it sounds like. And on this one, I'm not too sure if it's going to be good or not. Its premise definitely sounds interesting, but when I flip through it, it also has a... Let's be fair and call it a more Patterson writing style. Like, here's chapter 2. That's chapter 2. Chapter 2 is literally one paragraph. And while I did enjoy Patterson a lot in middle school, I recently tried to read one of his Alex Cross books and realized maybe I didn't like him as much as I thought. Maybe I liked him because he was easy reading for middle school. So yeah, hopefully this doesn't disappoint, but I am a little more hesitant on this one than I am with The Murder in the Hearst Degree. And finally, for my fourth book, I need to find a book that has a red cover. So, for the choice I made, it'll be The Da Vinci Code. Now, I've never actually read this book, or watched the movie for that fact, to be completely honest, but unlike other ones like The Relic, I have heard a lot more about this book and movie as a result. Now, I'm gonna try not to let those paint my perception as I dig into them. I chose this mostly because it's a rather large book on my shelf, and I kind of want to know if I'm actually going to like it, if it's going to keep taking up room. I didn't actually intend to do a mostly mystery TBR this month, but hey, it all works out that way. But those of you like me, who's never read the book or seen the movie, you must be wondering what this is about. So here's the synopsis. While in Paris on business, Harvard symbologist Robert Langdon receives an urgent late-night phone call. The elderly curator of the Louvre has been murdered inside the museum. A baffling cipher found near the body. As Langdon and gifted French cryptologist Sophie Neveu sort through the bizarre riddles, and they are stunned to discover a trail of clues hidden in the works of Da Vinci. Clues visible for all to see, yet ingeniously disguised by the painter. The stakes are raised when Langdon uncovers a startling link. The link curator was involved in the Priory of Sion, an actual secret society whose members include Sir Isaac Newton, Botticelli, Victor Hugo, and Da Vinci, among others. Langdon suspects they are on the hunt for a breathtaking historical secret, one that has been proven through the centuries to be as enlightening as it is dangerous. In a frantic race through Paris and beyond, apparently this is one that puts a synopsis on both sides of the desk cover. Langdon and Neveu find themselves matching wits with a faceless power broker who appears to anticipate their every move. Unless they can decipher the labyrinthine puzzle, the Priory's secret and an explosive ancient truth will be lost forever. So yeah, honestly, it sounds interesting. I've heard some things about both the book and the movie, so I'm hoping it holds up, but I am going to approach this with a little more caution than I would if it was something I just picked up to read. So yeah, that will be my main TBR through the month of September. However, I'm not quite done. As you see, I've read... So as I said, starting off, I read 2 of my minor TBRs. So I need to replace those as well with something to pick up when I'm either done with this month's book or just can't read the current book I'm at. So, I'm going to replace those real quick. The first book will be Falling Leaves by Adeline Yin Ma. Yin Ma? I hope that's right. But this is actually a book I contemplated for the first of my TBR, The Falling Leaves. The leaf one. However, I ultimately decided against it because I'm not necessarily confident that my particular style of review would work for something like a memoir. And in fairness, I personally don't know how I would talk about a memoir that doesn't just boil down to telling you what I think about it. And while that does fit some people, I like to be a little more in-depth, talking about flaws and virtues of a book. So with this, with memoirs and biographies, it tends to boil down more to, do I believe this happened in that type of review? Is it a 3 Cups of Tea by Greg Mortensen level of memoir, or is it an actual memoir? This book is, as it says right here, the memoir of an unwanted Chinese daughter, and basically just details the life of the author, Adeline Yen Ma, when she was the youngest child of an affluent Chinese family who eventually came to the United States to become a physician and a writer. Now, I'm not going to read directly from the back because this is just a minor TBR, and I'm not sure if I'm going to talk about them, so I hope this is good. Following that, with the recent Drift book, I'm a bit more on a D&D kick, and to stick with the theme on top of it, I've decided to read Dragonlance's Dragons of the Autumn Twilight. Now, I know Dragonlance is supposed to be more of a D&D world where the original lore for D&D still is in place, as opposed to the Forgotten Realms current lore. This is written by Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman, who, from what I could find, wrote almost all of the Dragonlance's books, along with the Death Gate cycle, which I also have down here. So, I'm hoping this will be good. I hope, because, I mean, I love D&D stuff, so it has to be good. And the final one is admittedly a book I'm picking up because I know it looks like it's going to be bad. And I want to know if it's good bad or bad bad. And like I've said before, reading a bad book can teach you just as much as reading a good book. So, the book I picked up is Typhoon Rising by David M. Dibble. I'm sorry, I've never actually said his name out loud, and I struggled to keep a straight face there. Dibble. Anyways, I'm going to read you the synopsis on this simply because it's 2 sentences long. Naval Intelligence Officer John Blake on the hunt for 2 stolen Mark 48 homing torpedoes. The dangerous quest leads him to the Japanese Secret Service and the beautiful Kalani. Together, they go undercover against a top godfather of the Asian crime syndicates. And there you go. That's the entire synopsis. And already displaying some really bad prose there. Prose and grammar. Because I don't think that first sentence was a complete one. So, looks like I'm going to be in for fun. But yeah. Anyways. So that is my TBRs for September. Now, due to this being longer, I'm not going to do a challenge. I'll probably stop doing challenges in these wrap-up videos and TBR videos. I'll probably do them as a own separate video later on in the month. But for now, I'm going to relegate these mostly to TBR and wrap-ups. Apart from that, that is what you can expect from me from this month. And I hope any of them raise your interest. So, see you later. Well, specifically, see you Monday when I tell you all about how this was. Bye!